Ethan looked out of the small spaceship window as the alien planet grew larger. It was a world unlike anything he had ever seen. The sky glowed with two suns, casting orange and purple shades across jagged mountains and deep forests. He felt small and nervous. He was just an accountant from Earth, sent here to help with trade and record-keeping, not to face warriors or dangerous creatures. But somehow he was now in the middle of a society ruled by strength. The landing was rough. Ethan's shuttle shook and rattled as it touched the ground. Outside, the air was thick, almost alive. Strange scents and sounds filled his nose and ears. He stepped out carefully, adjusting his glasses and trying not to draw attention. He noticed huge figures moving in the distance, walking with confidence and purpose. These were the pack. They were tall, muscular, and had sharp features. Each movement looked powerful, controlled, and dangerous. A loud roar echoed across the valley. Ethan froze. A massive alien, even taller than the others, appeared. His skin was dark, and his eyes glowed like molten gold. He was the Alpha. Every step he took made the ground seem to tremble. The pack fell silent, bowing slightly in respect. Ethan's heart raced. He was completely out of place. No amount of numbers or reports could help him here. The Alpha spoke, his voice deep and commanding. Ethan couldn't understand the words at first, but the meaning was clear. This was a world where only the strong survived, and every male had to prove himself. The Alpha's gaze swept over the crowd of warriors, stopping briefly on Ethan. The human looked small, fragile, and weak. A few pack members snickered quietly. "He won't last a day," one whispered. Ethan swallowed hard but held his head high. He had learned long ago to stay calm under pressure. He reminded himself that being human did not mean being powerless. He might not be strong physically, but he had skills others did not. He could think, plan, and see patterns. He had numbers, logic, and patience. Perhaps, he thought, these could be his weapons here. The Alpha began the testing of the males. One by one, warriors stepped forward to face challenges. Ethan watched carefully. Some were asked to lift heavy objects, others to fight in controlled combat, and a few were given puzzles and strategic tasks. Many failed. Some were arrogant, some rushed, and some simply underestimated the trials. Ethan noticed a pattern. The Alpha valued more than just strength. Observing, planning, and adapting seemed to matter, though few realized it. After hours of trials, the human accountant's turn was still far away. Ethan wandered the outskirts, taking in the sights. He saw alien buildings made from shining metals and strange crystals. Machines moved on their own, carrying materials and supplies. Children played near glowing water streams. Despite the rough and harsh society, life continued in rhythm. He realized that the Alpha ruled not just with power but with order. There was respect, law, and loyalty. Fascinated him. When the time finally came for Ethan to step forward, a hush fell over the crowd. He felt all eyes on him. The Alpha's gaze was sharp, piercing through him as if weighing every thought. Ethan squared his shoulders and walked toward the arena. He carried nothing but his calm mind and a small bag with tools and notes. The other males laughed quietly. "Look at him," one muttered. "A weak human thinks he can survive." Ethan did not answer. He focused on what he had learned. He paid attention to the patterns of the tests and the reactions of the Alpha. He noticed small details others missed. How the Alpha rewarded patience, how mistakes were punished more for arrogance than for failure, and how intelligence could outshine strength if used carefully. He formulated a plan. He would not fight like the others. He would use his mind. The Alpha made a gesture, signaling the start of the trial. Ethan stepped forward with confidence. Every step he took seemed small compared to the massive warriors, yet each step was calculated. He observed the challenges ahead, calculated risks, and adapted instantly. Some of the pack whispered, curious why the human did not panic. Others were amused, waiting for him to fail. But Ethan moved calmly, thinking ahead, noticing every small clue and adjusting his strategy. By the end of the first set of tasks, Ethan had surprised everyone. He did not complete them like a brute, but in a way that made sense, clever and precise. The Alpha's eyes narrowed, intrigued. This human was different. Not strong in body, yes, but perhaps strong in other ways. Ethan bowed slightly, acknowledging the challenge, and stepped back. Whispers ran through the pack. The human accountant had arrived, and for the first time, the Alpha's golden eyes seemed uncertain. Ethan's journey had just begun. He was a stranger in a world of strength and ferocity. Yet he understood something important. Even in a land ruled by muscle, a clear mind could carve its place. With careful observation and clever thinking, he might survive. Perhaps even thrive. Ethan watched as the next set of male candidates stepped forward. Each one was bigger, stronger, and faster than the last. The Alpha's eyes glowed as he observed them closely. Every movement mattered, and every mistake could cost a male his chance to join the inner circle. The pack's atmosphere was tense. Even those who had already passed earlier tests waited anxiously to see what would happen next. The first trial was physical strength. The warriors were asked to lift enormous stones and carry them across a rough terrain. Some managed to lift the stones, but most stumbled under the weight. The Alpha's gaze was unforgiving. A few males, confident in their power, tried to rush the task and fell hard. Ethan noted quietly that arrogance was punished more than failure itself. The Alpha did not merely want strength. He wanted control, focus, and respect for the challenge. Next came agility. The males had to climb high platforms and cross narrow beams suspended over deep pits. Some of them were strong and skilled, but fear got the better of many. One warrior froze and the Alpha roared, shaking the ground beneath him. The pack members gasped, and the frozen warrior stepped back in shame. Ethan felt his heart race. He was not meant to face these physical trials, yet he observed carefully, learning the patterns of the tests. He realized that the Alpha valued more than muscles. Quick thinking and calmness were important too. Then came the strategic trial. The Alpha presented a puzzle, a series of obstacles that required careful planning and logical thinking. Some warriors tried to solve it with brute force, smashing pieces or forcing paths where none existed. Others panicked and gave up. A few clever ones made small progress, but none succeeded entirely. Ethan watched with interest. This trial was different. Here, his mind could work freely without fear or disadvantage. Ethan studied the puzzle quietly. He noticed the sequence of movements and the logic behind each step. While others acted impulsively, he remained patient. He moved slowly, testing each action, observing the Alpha's reactions and adjusting his approach. The other pack members began to whisper. "Look at him," one said. "The human, he's thinking." Another shook his head, laughing softly. "He will fail anyway. You can't survive here with numbers alone." But Ethan knew better. He had prepared for challenges like this all his life. Numbers, logic, and patience had been his tools for years. Physical strength was useful, yes, but it was not everything. If he could see the rules behind the Alpha's judgments, he could turn the system in his favor. And he did. Slowly, piece by piece, Ethan completed the puzzle. Not with force, not with speed, but with precision and careful observation. The Alpha's golden eyes narrowed. He had never seen a human approach a trial this way. The Alpha leaned forward slightly, intrigued. Whispers ran through the crowd. "How?" one pack member murmured. Others looked confused, unsure how to react. The Alpha, who had tested hundreds of males before, felt something unfamiliar: curiosity. Ethan's next trial was endurance. He had to navigate a maze under harsh conditions. The walls were high and the paths twisted unpredictably. Warriors who relied on speed and power struggled. Many grew frustrated and gave up. Ethan, however, took his time. He mapped the paths in his mind, remembered patterns, and avoided dead ends. Step by step, he moved carefully, relying on logic rather than force. By the time Ethan reached the center of the maze, the pack was watching silently. They had never seen a human survive trials like this. Other males had failed through mistakes, fear, or impatience. Ethan had succeeded by staying calm, observing, and thinking. The Alpha's expression changed. There was respect, though subtle, in the glowing eyes. This human was not just surviving, he was proving a different kind of strength. Finally, the Alpha presented the last challenge for the day: a confrontation. It was not meant to be violent, but it tested confidence, understanding, and presence. Every male had to approach the Alpha and answer questions that revealed their thinking, decisions, and courage. The previous warriors struggled, stammered, or acted arrogantly. The Alpha was quick to spot flaws and weaknesses. Ethan stepped forward. He did not act bold or aggressive. Instead, he remained calm, measured, and thoughtful. He answered questions carefully, explaining decisions logically and honestly. He acknowledged his limits but also highlighted clever strategies he had observed in other trials. The Alpha listened, silent, his golden gaze fixed. The pack members were amazed. No human had ever faced the Alpha with such composure and intelligence. By the end of the day, Ethan had completed all trials. He had not used brute force or intimidation. He had used his mind. The Alpha, who had tested countless males before, leaned back, clearly impressed. There was a quiet tension in the air. Ethan had survived when others had failed, not because he was stronger but because he was different. The pack murmured among themselves. Could a human really be a part of their society? Could strength exist in many forms? Ethan smiled slightly, though cautiously. He knew his journey was only beginning. Surviving these trials was one thing. Winning the Alpha's respect completely would take more. But for the first time he felt he belonged, even in this strange and powerful world. The sun set behind jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the arena. Ethan looked at the Alpha and thought, I will find a way to succeed. Not as a warrior but as a human. That may be my greatest strength. After the first day of trials, Ethan spent the night studying the patterns he had seen. The alien planet was quiet now, though strange sounds still echoed from the forests and mountains. He sat by a small fire outside the camp, thinking carefully. He had survived the first set of challenges, but he knew the next trials would be even harder. The Alpha was clever and would not be impressed twice by the same human tricks. Ethan reviewed everything he had observed. The Alpha tested more than strength. He watched behavior, patience, intelligence, and even humility. The physical trials eliminated many, but the puzzles and strategic challenges had revealed a pattern. The Alpha rewarded thinking, planning, and respect for the rules. Ethan realized that he did not need to be the strongest, he needed to be the smartest. Early the next morning, Ethan approached the training grounds again. The other males were preparing themselves with weapons, armor, and brute confidence. Many laughed at him. The human is back, one said, shaking his head. He will fail. He has no muscles, no training. Ethan ignored them. He did not need to impress anyone with force. His plan was different. The first challenge of the day was a test of observation. Each male had to identify patterns in moving lights across a giant wall. The strongest males tried to rush, counting haphazardly, guessing and relying on reflex. Most failed. Ethan stood back, watching carefully. He noticed a rhythm in the lights. They moved slowly at first, then quickly, then slowed again. He recorded it in his mind and waited for the perfect moment. When he acted, his answer was precise. The Alpha's eyes widened slightly. Ethan had succeeded where the strong had failed. Next came a teamwork challenge. Males were paired to transport large crystals through a maze. Those who relied on muscle tried to force the crystals through tight spaces, often breaking or dropping them. Ethan volunteered to work with one of the largest warriors. He stayed calm, observing the path carefully. Instead of pushing blindly, he suggested smaller, clever steps, moving slowly and communicating clearly with his partner. The warrior, though confused at first, followed Ethan's instructions. Together they completed the task. Whispers ran through the pack. The human uses his mind, and others obey. The Alpha watched closely. He was impressed but cautious. This human was different. Most males tried to dominate every task, but Ethan used patience and reasoning. He calculated moves, anticipated mistakes, and acted with logic. The Alpha had not expected this. He began to wonder if perhaps intelligence could be stronger than muscles in certain situations. The next trial involved solving a complex mechanical device. It had many parts, moving gears and hidden switches. Others tried to force it open, hitting it with strength. Most failed. Ethan, however, studied the machine carefully. He traced the paths of gears with his eyes, listened to the sounds, and tested small movements with his hands. Step by step he figured it out. With a quiet click, the device opened. The Alpha leaned forward, intrigued. No one had ever solved it so calmly. After the mechanical device, Ethan faced the final challenge of the day, a debate with the Alpha. The topic was simple: how to lead the pack in a crisis. Most males shouted or made aggressive arguments, focusing on power and fear. Ethan spoke calmly, explaining ideas logically. He suggested strategies that used planning, coordination, and careful observation. He showed how even smaller males could contribute, how intelligence could support strength, and how patience could prevent mistakes. The Alpha's golden eyes studied him silently. He had never heard such reason from a human. Other pack members were stunned. They had never imagined a human could match the Alpha in thinking. Whispers ran through the crowd. Some admired him, others were suspicious. Ethan ignored it all. He focused on the Alpha, showing that he understood not just the rules of the trials, but the meaning behind them. Strength alone was not enough. He could show new ways to succeed, new ways to lead, without fighting or dominating. By the end of the day, Ethan's plan had worked. He had survived the trials using intelligence and strategy. The Alpha was quiet, clearly evaluating the human in a way he had never done before. The other males were exhausted, frustrated, or amazed. They had relied on their muscles, but Ethan had relied on his mind. The difference was clear. As night fell, Ethan reflected on the day. He knew that physical strength could still be a challenge, but he also knew that careful planning, observation, and patience could outmatch brute force. Tomorrow he would face the final trials, where the Alpha himself would judge each candidate directly. Ethan prepared himself mentally. He would remain calm, clever, and respectful. He would use his human advantage, thought, observation, and strategy. Ethan lay down to rest under the alien sky. 2 suns had set, leaving the world bathed in soft twilight. Strange creatures moved in the distance, and the wind whispered through the jagged rocks. He smiled slightly, thinking, I may be small and weak, but I can survive here. I will show that a human mind can challenge even the strongest Alpha. The pack slept uneasily around him, unaware that the quiet human they had underestimated was slowly becoming the most dangerous candidate of all, not through strength but through intelligence. Tomorrow everything would change. The day of the final trial arrived. The air was thick with anticipation, and the pack was unusually silent. Every male who had survived the earlier tests waited nervously, knowing that today would decide their place in the Alpha circle. Ethan stood at the edge of the arena, calm but focused. This was the moment he had been preparing for. The Alpha would judge him directly, and the stakes were higher than ever. The Alpha emerged from the shadows, his golden eyes glowing with intensity. He was taller and broader than any male present, with a presence that seemed to shake the ground. Every step he took commanded attention, every glance demanded respect. The pack watched silently, some in awe, some with disbelief. Few had ever dared to face the Alpha with the quiet confidence Ethan carried. Most relied on fear or strength to survive. Ethan relied on thought. The first task was simple yet deceptively challenging. The Alpha presented a problem that required both logic and courage. Many males rushed forward, trying to impress with strength or quick answers. They stumbled, guessed wrong, or failed to see the full picture. Ethan studied the problem carefully. He observed the Alpha's reactions, noted the smallest clues, and anticipated the hidden rules. Step by step he solved the challenge not with force but with patience and reasoning. The Alpha's brow lifted slightly, intrigued. Next came a test of perception. The Alpha moved swiftly among the candidates, asking questions and presenting scenarios that required understanding and judgment. Most males faltered, trying to answer quickly or relying on assumptions. Ethan listened carefully, asked clarifying questions, and answered thoughtfully. He demonstrated that he could see beyond appearances and consider the consequences of every decision. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. This human was unlike any male he had ever tested. Then came a demonstration of leadership. The Alpha presented a hypothetical crisis, a situation that required strategy, quick thinking, and cooperation. Most males immediately suggested aggressive actions or forceful solutions. Ethan remained calm. He suggested practical plans showing how smaller members could contribute, how observation and planning could prevent mistakes, and how patience and strategy could save the pack from unnecessary losses. His words were measured, precise, and respectful. The Alpha listened, silent but attentive, as the human demonstrated knowledge far beyond his size or strength. The final part of the trial was a direct confrontation with the Alpha. It was not a fight but a test of courage, confidence, and insight. Ethan stepped forward, feeling the weight of all eyes upon him. The Alpha's presence was overwhelming, but Ethan did not waver. He met the glowing eyes without fear. He bowed slightly, acknowledging the Alpha's authority, but he did not shrink. He understood that this was his moment to prove that strength could take many forms. The Alpha asked questions that challenged Ethan's understanding of leadership, loyalty, and morality. The other males watched, some in disbelief. Ethan answered calmly, explaining his ideas logically and clearly. He highlighted solutions that no one else had considered, ways to strengthen the pack without unnecessary violence, ways to combine intelligence and strength. Each answer impressed the Alpha more. The glowing eyes softened slightly, showing respect that no human had ever earned. The tension in the arena grew. The pack members whispered among themselves, some excited, some confused. Could a human truly outshine the strongest male in their society? Ethan's calm demeanor and clever solutions had captured their attention. The Alpha leaned forward, studying him. It was silent for a moment that felt like eternity. Then, slowly, the Alpha knelt. Not in submission out of fear, but in recognition of the human's intelligence, courage, and insight. The pack gasped. No one had ever seen the Alpha bow, not even to the strongest warriors. Ethan stepped back, surprised but composed. He realized that he had not defeated the Alpha with strength or force. He had shown that a human mind could be just as powerful as a warrior's body. The Alpha rose and his golden eyes met Ethan's. There was respect, approval, and acknowledgement of a new kind of strength. The other males looked at Ethan with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Some were inspired, seeing that success could come from cleverness and courage, not just brute force. Others were skeptical, unsure how to reconcile their traditions with this new reality. Ethan understood their hesitation, but he also knew that change often begins with one brave act. By the end of the day, Ethan had completed the trials. He had not fought, shouted, or used intimidation. He had used his mind, his patience, and his careful observation. The Alpha had recognized a new form of strength, one that balanced intelligence and courage. The pack had witnessed the impossible. A human, small and seemingly weak, had earned the respect of the most powerful male among them. As the sun set over the jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the arena, Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had survived the Alpha's tests and proven that humans could thrive in a world built on strength. The journey was not over, but for the first time he knew that his mind, courage, and patience were enough to stand among the mightiest beings in the galaxy. After the trials, the atmosphere in the pack camp was different. The males who had laughed at Ethan before now watched him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. The Alpha, still glowing golden in the late sunlight, called the pack together. His voice carried authority, but there was a new tone, one of consideration and reflection. The pack had seen something unusual, something that challenged their ideas of strength, and the human accountant was at the center of it. Ethan stood quietly, unsure what to expect. He had completed the trials and gained the Alpha's respect, but he did not yet know how the pack would accept him. The Alpha approached him slowly, his massive form casting a long shadow. He spoke in a language Ethan only partially understood, but the meaning was clear. The Alpha welcomed him, not as a weak outsider but as a valued member who brought something new to the pack. The other males shifted uneasily. Some were hesitant to accept a human as one of their own, especially one who had never lifted a heavy object or fought in combat. But the Alpha's authority was absolute, and his approval carried weight. He gestured toward Ethan, signaling that the human was to be included. Slowly the pack members nodded, some reluctantly, others with quiet admiration. In the days that followed, Ethan began to show the pack how his skills could help them. He organized records, planned resources, and suggested strategies for training and problem-solving. He demonstrated how careful observation and logical thinking could prevent mistakes during hunts, construction, and missions. The pack had relied on brute strength alone for generations, but Ethan's methods brought efficiency, cooperation, and safety. Slowly they began to see the value in what he offered. Ethan also observed the pack. He learned about their hierarchy, traditions, and culture. He noticed that the Alpha's leadership was respected but rigid, and many males followed rules without question. By combining his human perspective with the pack structure, he suggested improvements that strengthened the group without undermining the Alpha's authority. He spoke carefully, never challenging their customs but offering new ways to think. The Alpha watched him closely during this time. Sometimes he tested Ethan's advice with small challenges, seeing if it truly worked in practice. Ethan's solutions were always thoughtful, practical, and respectful. The Alpha began to rely on him, consulting him on matters that required patience, analysis, and creativity. A bond formed, built on mutual respect rather than fear or intimidation. Other members of the pack gradually accepted Ethan as well. They saw that his presence made their work easier, their tasks safer, and their successes more reliable. Some younger males were inspired by him, learning that intelligence, planning, and careful observation could be as valuable as strength. Ethan became a symbol of a new kind of power, one that complemented muscle with mind. One day the Alpha called a council meeting. The humans and the pack gathered together. The Alpha spoke of change, explaining that strength was not only physical. He praised Ethan for showing them a new way to live and work together. The pack listened, some nodding, some whispering in surprise, but all paying attention. Ethan felt a quiet pride. He had not used force, violence, or aggression. He had earned respect through intelligence, patience, and courage. Ethan smiled at the Alpha, who returned the gesture in his own way. The glow in the Alpha's eyes now carried warmth and approval, not just power. The pack had begun to see humans in a new light. They realized that outsiders could bring ideas, skills, and solutions that even the strongest among them could not imagine. In this moment, boundaries were broken, and respect was earned in ways no one had expected. As the sun set behind the mountains, casting golden and purple light across the camp, Ethan walked among the pack. He helped guide younger members, advised on strategies, and shared knowledge. They listened, learned, and followed. He was not just an observer anymore, he was part of their world. The Alpha stood nearby, silent but approving, watching as his pack embraced a new era. Ethan realized that this planet, once intimidating and alien, had become a place where humans could contribute in meaningful ways. His journey had begun with fear and uncertainty, but it ended with trust, respect, and influence. The pack had learned a lesson as well. Strength was not only about muscles or intimidation. Intelligence, patience, and courage could change everything. For the first time, Ethan felt truly at home among beings far larger and stronger than himself. He had not only survived but had thrived. He had reshaped ideas, earned the Alpha's respect, and shown the pack a path forward. The human mind had made its mark on this alien world, proving that strength could take many forms, and that even the smallest among them could inspire the greatest. As night fell, the pack settled for rest under the twin moons, and Ethan looked up at the stars. He knew that challenges would come again, but now he was ready. Together with the Alpha and the pack, he could face anything, through thought, courage, and the quiet power of a human mind.